But looking back, it was absolutely mind-blowing how when we shift inside, it opens up ourselves as a vessel to receive bracha and blessing. And we can't use it as a formula. There's no formula, but there are certain principles we know are true.
Hello there, I'm Tanya Khazanov, and you're listening to Human and Holy. Today's episode is a conversation with Jackie Glaser, and I cannot explain how much I loved this conversation. Jackie Glaser is a former Today Show psychologist in Australia, director of leadership development for a global nonprofit called Olami, and is also a dating coach, or she says dating surgeon, who helps people look at their blockages around meeting the right one, being connected with themselves, self-worth, singlehood, and so much more. She has a remarkable story. She was married at 44, had a baby at 50, and this conversation will be relevant to you regardless of what stage of life you are in. A lot of the conversations are angled towards singlehood, but what I really found was all of the lessons there were so relevant to any season of life that you're in. Many of us are waiting for something or wanting something in our lives. And today's conversation really covers the gamut of self-worth and moving past blockages and receiving the gifts that we wish to receive from God, really giving our power to Hashem and nothing else. When it comes to singlehood, we spoke about matchmakers. We spoke about the pain and loneliness, how to navigate your own experience of singlehood, what place you want to be dating from, seeing our experiences of anxiety as an opportunity to deepen our trust in God, and not falling prey to the belief system that there are reasons you're not married or that there is something wrong with you because you are single. This is such a rich conversation, particularly if you're in this season. But like I said, these concepts and these themes of dissolving our blockages and receiving the good that is possible for us from God is relevant to anyone in any season of life. Jackie's also just super engaging and fun to listen to. I hope you enjoy and love this conversation. Before we get started with today's conversation, let's take a quick second for our sponsors. We know them, we love them. They bring Human and Holy into the world. Tova Munitz sponsored today's episode, a member of the Human and Holy community and the founder of Tove Bookkeeping, which is a boutique bookkeeping service that helps people take control of their finances with real clarity and precision. Tova has a background in project management and a passion for organization, and she brings a very thoughtful, non-intimidating approach to bookkeeping and can handle everything from reconciliations to customized reports and monthly financial reviews. When it comes to someone touching your finances, I think one of the most important things to know is that they are trustworthy and organized. I know this woman in person, and she just excels at the work that she does. She works both with nonprofits and businesses and often catches things that other people miss. And she says she has a passion for education and loves teaching people about their finances and helping guide them so that they could understand what they're looking at and know what's going on in the financial element of their business or nonprofit. If you are looking for a bookkeeping service, I cannot recommend Tova enough. She is trustworthy and organized and pleasant to work with, and you get to support a Jewish woman in her business. Thank you, Tova, for bringing this episode into the world. I'm going to be putting her contacts in the show notes, and you can reach out to her for a free 20-minute consultation. You can talk to her, find out more about what she offers, and if she might be the right fit for you. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome to Human and Holy, Jackie.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you're here.
Thanks,
Let's get started with you introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
My name's Jackie Glaser. I am I don't know what to call myself, a dating surgeon. I was a psychologist, and then I didn't get married for many years. And in those desperate moments when you make deals with Hashem, I said, Hashem, if you get me married, I will help singles. Like Hashem needs my help. Yeah, right. And I got married, thank God, which is a whole other story. And now that's what I do full time, is I help Jewish single women get married, in the sense that to dig deeper inside themselves and see if there's something standing in their way. And if there is, I help them shift it. And the things that I teach people are not specific to dating. So I end up helping some married women too, and now some men, and it's expanding. But it's really about how to shift the deeper subconscious blocks that we have in ourselves, and seeing also singlehood or singledom as a journey to achieve your own potential.
I love how you said that. Like, this is a work for that you specifically do in helping single women navigate that season, but it really applies to everyone in all areas of life.
Yeah. And God puts us in different chapters in different parts of our life for different reasons. And I would say you're single by design, not by punishment. You're not here being punished, waiting for your life to start. It is a journey that you're meant to be on for this period of time. Everyone has a different periods of time. I had a very long period of time, and I got married at 44. And in that period of time, you are becoming your potential and your wholeness if you want to work at it, and to not let despair and hopelessness and the darkness sort of overcome you is really, really important, because then that actually does affect your dating. And so then it becomes a cycle. So that's also what we address. But the tools that I teach people, and it's not just the tools. It's not like a quick tool. It's a whole approach, and it's a whole approach to yourself that shifts us enormously, and learning how to process your emotions and process your fears and worries that come up all the time in life.
You mentioned that you got married at 44, and you have a really remarkable story and journey and process to those single years and what happened afterwards. I would love if you could share a little bit about that before we dive into your work and I ask you questions that would be relevant to others. And I know that there's it's hard to how do you shrink that
which
story.
version?
Which version? Well, you decide.
Yeah. I became frum at 30. So that was the first chapter. The first chapter was growing up completely secular in Sydney, Australia, to the point where I did not even know about Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and I definitely was not in shul, which shows how far away I was, because a lot of traditional Jews will go to shul for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And so that was the first miracle, was that Hashem plucked me and my brother out of Sydney, Australia, and we went to Israel and explored our Judaism. And then, of course, you're 30, so it's like everyone's like, get married, get married, get married. And it wasn't happening, and it wasn't happening, and it wasn't happening. And I thought, okay, I was kind of glad it didn't happen for a couple of years. So as I sort of got really stable and grounded in Yiddishkeit and Judaism. But then it didn't happen. And it was like another test. And I felt really betrayed. And I felt really, really abandoned by God. Like, what do you mean? I just gave up everything for you. I gave up a peaking career in psychology. I was on the Today Show in Australia. And people thought I was nuts to walk off that and go to Israel. And sometimes I did too, but I also had a deep knowing that it was the right thing to explore my Judaism, because I had no clue what it meant to be Jewish, no clue. And I knew that it wasn't random I was Jewish. I had to explore that piece. And that it would come back as blessing on some level. I did feel that most of the time. But then after this wasn't happening, and I wasn't moving forward with my life, I really felt abandoned. And I had to wrestle in the darkness there for a long time, for 14 years. From when I was 30, showed up secular, became from, let's say, 32, right? And at 32, 33, I was really, really, really ready to get married. And then till 11 years of it not happening and being really ready was really, really tough. It was a very, very tough test. And, obviously I needed it, and I'll find out why in the next world. But I had to wrestle with the demons. And it was really a result of, we never know the whole story. My approach is, we never know the whole story. So anyone who tells you you're single because of X, Y, Z, I just run away from, because it's very Guyverdict to say that. Doesn't mean that a single person doesn't have issues, blocks, or things to work on. No, of course they do. But the proof that it can't be, and this is for everyone listening who's also married, who's listening and knows singles, the proof that it can't be that a single is not whole enough, and that's why they're not married, is that there are thousands and thousands of toxic, dysfunctional couples married. Yeah. You cannot point to a to a single person and say, oh, that's why they're not married. Because plenty of people with many more difficult issues are married. Are they happy? I don't know. But marriage, that's not how Hashem's weighing it up. That you have to get to a certain level of wholeness, happiness, balance, equilibrium. No. Sometimes people need to get married early and go through the rocky stages in marriage. Other people need to develop outside of marriage. We've got to have some humility. Most of my life I was dating when people were telling me what was wrong with me, which there are a lot of things wrong with me, but most of the time people were telling me that this is why I'm not married. My husband wasn't even available. He was married. He wasn't divorced yet.
Wow.
So hello.
God had a plan.
God had a plan. He for sure is my soulmate. For sure I didn't miss someone else that I should have married. For sure I could not have married anyone else. I'm absolutely certain of it. So he's my soulmate, and I had to wait. Do I know why I had to wait? No, I'll find out in the next world, but we don't know people's tikkunim. We don't know, should I translate to the English?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know people's purposes, like what they're doing on the planet and what they're here to fix and what they're here to shift inside themselves and do for the world. We have no clue.
Yeah.
I did 12, 13 years of working in Kiruv, Jewish outreach, in those 12, 13 years that I probably couldn't have done if I was married. So I don't know, maybe there was something there I had to do. That's what people kept telling me. And I was like, didn't really give me any solace or comfort at the time. I was like, I don't care. I want to be married.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't know what people need to develop in themselves. And a lot of the times the singles I work with will develop themselves so much that they will have a much, much happier, healthier marriage. And they will be grateful for that. And I get one invitation a week right now from my alumni to an engagement or a wedding saying, I would not be getting married if it wasn't for this work. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy. And the dating process was so smooth and clear and calm. And I'm like, that's the goal, is like, you don't have to put yourself through the ringer and the roller coaster to date and get married, and wrestling single is enough.
Yeah.
The single darkness and the struggles and the, working with Bitachon, the trusting Hashem when you're in the darkness, which is really the test of a single person, as well as, obviously the practical things around dating. But that's really that inner place when you're by yourself at night thinking and feeling and you're alone. That's the test. And I feel that test is repeated throughout our whole lives when Hashem puts us in an unknown situation, whether you're married, whether you got with your children, whether it's with parnasa, whether with income, whether it's with your health, whatever it is, if you're ever in an unknown situation, it's wrestling in the darkness with that trusting in Hashem and that uncertainty that we keep getting tested over and over again. So you see Hashem really wants us to focus on that.
Okay, I'm not single and I feel some resistance to the idea that there's blockages to dissolve in order to get married because you're describing people coming to you and saying, I would have never gotten married if I hadn't softened these blockages, dissolved them. And then you're also saying, which I love, that have humility when you look at another person. We have no idea what a person's path is. Sometimes people, like you said, like you were waiting for your husband to be available. Like you clearly couldn't have gotten married in the period that you wanted to.
Right.
So you see that often in hindsight. But what do you mean when you say that there are blockages to dissolve? And how can we look at that without in any way blaming a single person for being single or saying it's because they may have some blockages that they need to dissolve, which to me is like,
well, we all have blockages. Do you have any blockages now at all in your whole?
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's get something straight. We're starting from the fact and the premise that every single person have blockages and if you're alive, you have a blockage because that's what you're here. You're here to work on something. Does that mean you're completely disconnected? No. And my perspective is that it's Hashem's business. We don't have the access to the whole story. So all I can do as an individual, if I'm single, let's say, or even married, is to work on myself to become as open, as whole as I can possibly be. And Hashem will decide when is the right time for my specific shift. And so we cannot point to this block saying you need to shift it to this level before you get married because we don't know. And some people need to shift it outside of marriage. Some people will shift it inside of marriage. But either way, we're works in progress and we're meant to be working on ourselves for the whole of our life. And the premise that there's something wrong with me because I'm single is so destructive to singles that it ends up harming the dating process. That's part of the problem, is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Is that if I start believing I'm internally, there's something wrong with me, I'm defective. The reason I got into this full-time, I thought I'd just do it part-time to give back to Hashem. Like I made that deal with Hashem. And then when I got married, which was a result of my inner shift as well, I just want to say that there was multiple layers going on.
Oh, interesting.
I had an inner shift and my husband was married and wasn't available and all those things were happening and he had to go through his own process. And his beautiful daughters had to be born. So obviously he had to be in that marriage as well because his beautiful daughters had to be, like, we don't know the bigger picture and those souls. And so he had to go through his divorce process and I had to go through whatever growth I had to do. And when I had a very, very deep shift of accepting Hashem's ratzon, of accepting Hashem's will, accepting that Hashem, if this is where you want me, it's breaking my heart, but I'll accept it. Which is really deep down, I wasn't accepting it. I was resisting it. I felt betrayed. How could you do this to me? Even though I knew intellectually that's not the right approach, I couldn't help it. And at some point I got squeezed so much, I just said, okay, surrender. If this is what you want, I will do my best, but it's going to break my heart. But I'll do my best. And I remember very clearly having this soul-to-soul moment with myself and Hashem where I made that decision crying. And I was davening, praying, and I just said, I will do my best to make do with whatever you give me. But if I end up single, it'll break my heart. But I'll accept it. I'll do my best. And the next day, my husband was suggested. Like the very next day, someone called me and said, do you know Aaron Glaser? And looking back, because I didn't know he was my husband that day, but looking back, it was absolutely mind-blowing how when we shift inside, it opens up ourselves as a vessel to receive bracha and blessing. And we can't use it as a formula. I'm very hesitant to say it because this is the whole manifesting craze. We don't manifest anything. There's no formula, but there are certain principles we know are true, which is if you move yourself into a state of either reliance on Hashem, he's my dad, he's looking after me, he's taking care of me, I'm relying on you to the point, what does that feel like? It feels secure. I feel secure in your love for me. I feel calm because I know you have my back. That's reliance. Or acceptance. I accept what you decide for me. It's so hard, it's going to break my heart, but I know you're in charge, so I'm going to accept it. Avinu, you're my father. Malkeinu, you're my king. These are the two different systems we can operate in. We get to choose which one we're in. This one with my husband, when he came, I was in Malkeinu. I was like, okay, whatever you decide, Hashem, it's going to break my heart, but I will make my will as if it's your will. And what do we hear in Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers? Hashem makes his will as if it's your will. And that's what happened. The next day, he brought my husband. So what we can do is we can move ourselves into a different status where we can merit things that we may not have merited. We can receive blessing we may not merit by moving ourselves into a supernatural state. I overcame on some level my nature. It was not, I don't do this every day. It was a moment in time where I was squeezed, where I was able to pop out of my nature and say, okay, I surrender. And Hashem immediately gave me blessing and response to that. And I don't believe I'm special. I believe I'm just a Jew and that every Jew has access to this. Every Jew has access to this relationship with God if they want it.
What you just said was so gorgeous. And that line of an internal shift opens you up to blessing, and maybe even blessing that you would not have deserved, but you like lift yourself to a different status or level where that becomes available to you. It's
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We're living in like the Matrix. Like we are. Like you can pop yourself out of the natural realm into the supernatural. You can. By now, I never, ever, 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 ever would have done that had I not been in such a dark place. I never would have done that. I never would have been forced to confront it. And so the Torah compares us to olives, right? Olive oil is rich and beautiful and pure, and we anoint kings with olive oil. It's the most highest level liquid. How's olive oil extracted? Crushed, right? We know we crush olives. So sometimes we're pushed in a corner in life and we are crushed and pressed in a certain position, in a certain way, in a certain period of time. And it's only because we're crushed and pressed that we're forced to dig deep inside ourselves and extract this beautiful, rich potential that we never would have had access to otherwise. I never would have had access to that. I never want to go through that again. Hashem, that's enough. Thank you so much. But I don't want to go through any more tests like that. But looking back, that was a turning point. And that was an access point in myself where I can now continue practicing that Malkeinu system of acceptance and also the reliance system of, you're my dad. Of course you're looking out for me. You got my back.
So talk to me a little bit more about the darkness, because something that you mentioned to me was how spiritual bypassing often comes up in this conversation. And when we speak about like lifting ourselves to a supernatural realm and just like completely submitting, our will becomes Hashem's will, there is space there for spiritual bypassing where we're not really addressing the darkness, but you are really speaking to the fact that it was actually the darkness itself that brought out this ability. So I would love to hear you talk more about what it actually looks like to do this through the darkness versus by bypassing the human experience of the struggle.
Yes, spiritual bypassing. We are going in.
Entering the chat.
Spiritual bypassing is a term, I don't even know where I heard it or where it came from, but it so perfectly describes this phenomenon in the Jewish world where obviously we're focused on Hashem and God and spirituality, and that's all true, but God makes us a partner. And as a partner, I'm responsible for my vessel, for myself as a vessel and as a partner in the relationship. It's a real relationship. So just imagine like codependent where you are only focused on someone else. You're only giving, but you're giving because you want to receive, but you're not going to really take responsibility for your needs. And you're constantly focused on them and being selfish and the people pleaser, right? It backfires at some point and it ends disastrously. So that's what I feel is a phenomenon in the Jewish world a little bit, meaning we forget, we jump over ourselves, we ignore our own needs. We don't look inside, we don't take responsibility, and we just focus on Hashem, thinking Hashem's going to save us or rescue us or do everything that needs to be done. And He doesn't. He gives us power. He wants to empower us to be proactive and to be engaged and involved with Him. So there's certain things that going to Hashem won't solve, so to speak. You know, I want to be careful with the wording there because, of course, Hashem is everywhere and is the source of everything and can do anything. However, He wants us to do our tikkunim, our fixings, our corrections, our healing, our wholeness. He wants that. We're here on the planet to do some of that. So that means that how I show up to a relationship, for example, is reflective directly on how I show up for myself. Usually there's a mirror there. I call them mirror moments. So if you want to know what you need to work on in yourself to become more whole so that you can then be a healthy partner in a relationship, whether it be with Hashem, with your spouse, or with a friend, you want to look at the patterns in your life. What are the patterns that keep showing up? What are the circumstances I keep going into? Those patterns will reflect usually pain points, challenging points, darkness that are really hard, that we think if I could just fix that, then I'll be fine. And really, they're the whole point. They're the whole point. The whole point is that they're coming as hints, little signposts from Hashem, hey, this is what you have to work on, rather than what we tend to do, which is the spiritual bypassing. I can't believe I'm in this situation again. Hashem, how could you do this to me? It's all about Hashem. Hashem, I blame Hashem. I turn to Hashem to get me out of it rather than let me look at what am I doing potentially to create this?
Oh, interesting.
What am I doing rather than, why don't we do that? We avoid doing that because we don't want to beat ourselves up because it feels so bad. I feel so bad when I realize that maybe I'm responsible for stuff that I feel somehow like I judge myself. I feel ashamed, or I judge myself, I feel bad, or I just don't want to take any responsibility and I just want to blame everyone else. So either I beat myself up, self-condemnation, or I'm blaming, other people or Hashem, so I don't take any responsibility. But either way, I'm spiritually bypassing to become more spiritual, focus on Hashem, and also Hashem will save me, and I just got to focus on Bitachon more. Let's say I'm anxious, and I'm anxious, which we know if you're anxious, it means you don't have complete trust in Hashem, right? Because someone who has complete trust in Hashem is not anxious. But you might be anxious because you're beating yourself up half the day. And now you're saying, I don't trust Hashem, but you're not looking at how am I being with myself? Am I being kind to myself? Am I trustworthy with myself? Our bodies have their own consciousness and reaction. And our neshama is a separate creature also. So we have a neshama guf dialogue. We have different parts of ourselves that have relationships within ourselves. And the first point of connection is here. Rav Shlomo Wolbe used to say, if you want to know what kind of parent someone's going to be, you look at how they parent this kid. And he meant the guf, the body. The body's like a child. The neshama's like an adult. And we have a relationship. And the first point of connection is how do you treat yourself? If you're beating yourself up all day, there's no point blaming Hashem, right, for your anxiety, or saying I need to work on my bitachon for my anxiety. Yes, we always need to work on bitachon, 100%. But we need a keli for it. We need a vessel to be able to receive our relationship with Hashem and what He wants to give us. And if we don't feel worthy of that, let's say that's another block or a darkness, I feel unworthy, I don't feel good enough. We can't possibly see how Hashem views us. Hashem loves us unconditionally more than our parents do. Most people who have this issue can't even let it in. So Hashem can be pouring out love and you can't feel it because you haven't opened your vessel to heal enough to be able to receive that love. And then you kind of blame Hashem for it. And right, so we just bypass ourselves. We don't do the work. I think it's a very common phenomenon. Why don't I do the work? I don't want to be selfish and focus on myself. It's another one, right? I don't want to be selfish. Either I'm going to beat myself up or I'm going to feel selfish, right? It's not comfortable. I don't like to be there. And I'm saying, no, go lech lecha, go to yourself. It's very clear. Go to yourself. It's going to be good for you.
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean? It means go in with compassionate curiosity. Isn't that interesting I did that? Isn't that interesting that I'm anxious when that happens? Isn't that interesting that I feel like I pedestal certain people? Isn't that interesting that I can't speak up in these situations? Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting? Use it as feedback. It's data. It's the mirror moment. It's the pattern. It's a hint to what you're doing on the planet, which is awesome because that's what you're meant to be doing.
This is such an insightful point. And I think that parallel that you brought of being in a relationship with Hashem that is codependent, where we are so focused on God to avoid looking in the mirror as to what certain things are bringing up, or like what part we are playing in our own lives, and not to take responsibility.
Yes.
But when you begin to say, no, this is a real relationship, and there's something in my life that is signaling to me that there's a different way that I could be showing up, and not just like turning to Hashem and saying like, God, save me.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, like I think you pinpointed something really big there, because many people do find themselves in that space. They want to call to God, but something about the God save me does feel like inauthentic. And I think you pinpointed why, is because where's the personal responsibility in what this is teaching me about how I can change the way that I show up?
Exactly. You got it.
Oh, I really feel that.
And that we use God as an escape sometimes, and we use God as a scapegoat sometimes.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we do. We all do.
Struggle. Yeah. And then I relate to this.
If you notice that, don't beat yourself up for it. Go, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting that I do that? In what areas do I do that? Right. And once you start to change the foundation of how you approach yourself, then you can learn anything, because you're not bad. Everyone is good, lovable, and worthy. Right? You. Okay. Absorb that. Yeah. Right. Good, lovable, worthy. Once you know I'm actually essentially good, lovable, and worthy, now I can look at anything. Right? Because a lot of the problem is we don't feel that. We feel ashamed. We feel bad. We feel I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. And that foundation destroys everything. You could hear the best advice. You could get the best feedback. You could get the best circumstance, opportunity, and you will not be able to do it. You won't be able to experience it. You won't be able to let it in, because I don't have the foundation. And that's a lot of the work. The shift that people usually say is life-changing with the work I do, with them is that shift, because now that opens up the gateway to I can look at any issue. Whereas before, they just felt in this cycle of badness. I felt like on some level they were anxious, they didn't trust themselves. Lack of self-trust and lack of self-worth are the two biggest issues that I deal with continuously with most of my women. Nearly everyone comes in with those issues. Everyone. And if I look at the goals and the KPIs that we do for the results for the course, it is I want self-worth and I want self-trust, particularly trust when dating. How can I get married to a person for the rest of my life? It's the biggest decision we ever make if I can't trust my decision-making. And they run around and get everyone's opinions on what they should do because they can't trust themselves. But no one's opinion is going to satisfy you, because it has to come from within, that decision. It's a very subjective decision who you marry. It's not like there's an objective right or wrong. And if you don't listen to yourself, you're going to be driven crazy with anxiety.
So how do you guide people to develop more self-trust and self-worth?
To tune into their body. So it's a blend of somatic work, body work, and tune into their body. The body is the reflection of the subconscious part of the brain. A lot of therapy and coaching happens in the conscious part of the brain, which is not bad. It's just a different faculty, different aspect, I should say, of the brain. And that's why you could feel the pit in your stomach and feel sick, and consciously and cognitively know why you feel sick, where it comes from, what the issue is, what the dynamic is, start to talk yourself out of it, but you cannot change how you feel. So the majority of women I work with will say, yeah, I've done a lot of work on myself. Let's say some haven't, but a lot have. And they say, I know what my issues are, where they come from, why they're there, and I can't change how I feel. I know I need more self-worth. How do I get it? How do I feel it? Feel it. You have to feel self-worth. That's on a body level. Why don't I feel it? Because it's coming from a belief system in my subconscious. So the no amount of talking to yourself consciously, which is only 20% of our reactions, 80% plus comes from the subconscious, is going to accurately address that. Sometimes you can have an epiphany with the conscious mind when you realize something that you didn't realize. I have an epiphany because I wasn't aware of that. So it pops up from the subconscious and it changes. But it's not necessarily often that happens for everyone. And so what I help people to do is really value the body. The body is not just something silly and useless, that the body is giving you data. It's feedback. Let's tune into the body. You have a pit in your stomach. Let's go talk to it. What do you mean? That's so weird. Like, yes, it might be weird, but I want you to think of the pit in your stomach as a gold mine of information that's giving you, that you keep trying to ignore and push away. But what we resist persists. So the more you ignore the pit in your stomach, the more it's going to be there, louder and louder and louder and louder, right? And that's what makes us stuck, is that we reject what we're experiencing on some level. Whether it's suppression, whether it's escapism, whether it's judgment will keep you stuck. Like I'm such an idiot. Like whatever negative thoughts you think to yourself about what you're experiencing, I shouldn't be feeling that, what's wrong with me? All that talk keeps you stuck. And so when we go in with compassionate curiosity to the pit, we say, that's interesting. Let me put my hand on the pit. Let me take my attention into the pit, into the center of the pit. And let me say, thanks so much for being here. I really want to know more. What would you say if you could speak right now? And then you keep your attention on the pit and you let the first words pop up in your mind straight away without thinking. You're not consciously thinking about it. You keep your attention on the body and it will pop up something into your mind straight away that is a feeling usually based. I'm scared, let's say. Oh, thank you so much for telling me that. What are you most scared of? Again, a lot of people jump up in the brain and try and work it out, and we can teach people how that feels very different to do that. If you notice you're doing that, you just take your attention back to the pit and you ask it again. What are you most scared of? And then boom, a word will come up, rejection or being hurt or abandonment or whatever. Something word will come out and you say, thank you so much for telling me that. Then you can go different directions. You can do an IFS model, which is more inner child, and say, how old were you when you first felt that? And it will tell you. I teach this method in a very simplified way en masse, because I found the average layperson can actually learn how to do this for themselves, and it is life-changing. If you need something a little bit more complex, then you have to do it with a therapist, which is fine. Yeah. But the average person can help get clarity and process and accept what is going on in their body, and that alone will help shift it enormously. The other thing you can do is not go into the inner child, but you could also go into just surrendering into that feeling. It's okay. This fear can be here as long as it wants. No matter what, I'm okay. And what do we do there? We say, no matter what, I'm okay, means I'm not the pit. I am separate. I am different. I am higher. I am an neshama. I'm a soul. I am coming from somewhere else, and I'm accepting this fear, which is the pit. I'm accepting it. I'm letting it be here. I'm not resistant. I'm embracing it. When we embrace parts of ourselves, that's really creating an internal sense of unity, achdus, right? We bring parts of ourselves out of golus, exile, very deep idea. What's happening on the macro is happening on the micro internally. And when I accept parts of myself, it just dissolves. The fear just dissolves. People are like in shock at how quickly it moves. Because when you say, I'm okay no matter what, even if I have this fear, it allows a spaciousness, an expanded vessel for the pit to move through us, and it just will dissolve. Or it will move into something else. It'll either move into sadness, move into anger, but either way, it's energy and it will start to move. It won't stay as the pit anymore. That is the summary, very, very, very briefly, of how I guide people, and they have to practice it for, let's say, a period of 4 to 8 weeks, where they chap the method, and then they can process anything in their body. It's life-changing because you're no longer victim to your experience that way. You don't stay stuck.
So essentially what you're aiming to do is to clear this subconscious blockage that a person could have to make us more available to blessings that are out there for us.
Oh, once you clear that out, you feel more joy, you feel closer to Hashem. Now you can focus on your relationship with Hashem so much more because you really are the vessel. When we're clogged up with all this stuff, the anxiety, the sadness, the anger, and it's unprocessed, there's less room for Hashem. So we're clearing this up, yes, and it feels incredible. And that's part of our tikkun. Like it's also part of our correction. What we're doing here is to work through some of that stuff. And what most of us do is we just keep it shoved down because we don't want to feel it and we don't know how to feel it. And we don't know what to do with it, right? So we're in a way a victim to these feelings, and we're stuck and we can't move forward and we can't do anything. And not only that, so many decisions are made from fear. So many decisions are made to avoid fear. So many things, opportunities are ruined because I just can't do it. I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, okay, so be uncomfortable and explore what's coming up. People say that to me too. I have a group course and they say, I'm not a group person. I'm like, okay, but that's the reason to do it. What do you mean? No, I can't, I have to have my camera on? Yes, you have to show up for yourself. Oh no, so what's going on inside of you that you're projecting onto a whole lot of strangers that you've never met?
Yeah.
What's going on? I don't make people speak. I don't force them to speak on the spot, but I'll say, I want you to explore what's going on inside of you and what you're automatically projecting on people you don't know, because you're for sure doing that in dating. If you can't do it with women just like you, who are in the same boat as you, that you never have to speak to again, how can you do it in dating? Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if I'm going to show up like this on a group call, for sure I'm showing up like that dating.
Can you expound on that point? What do you mean when you say that you're projecting something internally on the people around you, how that could show up in dating or in a group of women?
We don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. So we have a lens internally, which is part of our vessel that we look out of into the world. And we see through that lens the world. And we think it's the world that we're seeing, like accurately, like objectively, but really it's coming through the lens. So the lens colors it, or the lens defines it. And so when I show up to a group, all my belief systems about myself, about how I'm perceived, about others, are they trustworthy? Are they kind? No. And let's say I've gone through life and I feel criticized and judged and not good enough, which is very common.
Yeah.
I'm going to project the fact that I'm going to feel not good enough. They're going to judge me. I'm going to seem silly or stupid. I'm going to feel ashamed. I don't want to say anything because it's going to sound weird, and I'm just going to sit there quiet. Or I'm a people pleaser and I want to do what other people want, but I don't know what they want. So I'm just going to, whatever it is your belief systems are, you will naturally assume that about other people without meeting them, without any evidence of that from someone else.
So if our subconscious is guided by our belief system, and this is the dissolution that you work on, how is there any work here around our belief system itself and changing that, not on a body level, but intellectually, like on a belief level?
So you don't need to. That's what I love about this work. When you really accept, let's say, the pit in the stomach, because we were using that as an example, and the pit was fear of rejection, let's say. When I really can surrender to that fear and know that I'm not the fear, but I'm higher than the fear, like I'm the neshama, and I can embrace that fear, the fear dissolves. And because the fear dissolves, it no longer feeds that belief system at a cognitive level. It disappears. There's no more story, because really there's a state that we're in, which is like the fear, and that fuels the story in our head, which is the narrative and the story and the belief system consciously. And then that fuels the strategy and the action and how we respond in life. And a lot of coaching and therapy, let's say, will address strategy and story. Again, it's not wrong and it can be very helpful, but it doesn't address the state necessarily. Sometimes the thoughts can affect the state, reverse it that way. I've just found this to be much more powerful and potent, because when you go into the core of the state, boom, it dissolves, and then so does the story. And then the strategy, of course, changes. So people will say, oh my gosh, I got rejected. They call me like a week or two after the course finishes. I went on a date, I got rejected, and I didn't even care. And they're like blown away, because they don't have to talk themselves out of anything consciously. They just they feel okay. I feel fine. It's like they got a new body. Like how is this possible?
And how is that possible?
Because the fear that they had of rejection dissolved. They feel secure inside themselves, or much more secure. Again, it's not a quick fix. It's not magic. You have to work on it. But they feel so much more secure, and that rejection is not a reflection of them, because they've changed their own relationship. You can only feel rejected. People don't like to hear this, but I can only ever feel rejected and not good enough and wounded and all these things, judged. Even though someone else might actively, objectively be doing that to me, I can only feel that if I then do it to myself in response. So if someone looks at you judgmentally and you feel on some level not good enough, and you see their judgment, and then you start judging yourself quickly, it happens very automatically, very, very fast. And I start judging myself, I'm going to feel less than, because I've just judged myself, because I saw your judgment, and now I'm agreeing with your judgment on some level subconsciously, and I'm judging myself. No one else can make you feel anything. Again, no one likes to hear that, because it means you have to take responsibility for it, but then you can change it. So with rejection, I'm only going to feel rejected if someone rejects me and then I reject myself, and I feel like I'm less than because they rejected me. It feeds into the childhood wound. If I then turn around and say, I'm lovable, good, and worthy, and this just means it's not the right fit. So then someone can reject you and you don't feel rejected, because you're not rejecting yourself. And so when these women shift that in the course, that's why they're so excited, because they got rejected. They remember how they used to feel, which was totally like a puddle on the floor, and they feel fine. Why? Because they're not rejecting themselves anymore, because they learnt to build that relationship. It's the most important relationship to build, is how you respond to yourself, right? So that's, I just love it. I could talk all day on it, because it's just so powerful. Yeah.
I could listen to you talk
it's
about
so
it all day.
Powerful.
I love that sentence that you just said of,
I reject myself, basically. Like what it's awakening in me is my own self-rejection. And when you start to take ownership for your emotions, which is a really challenging thing to do because it's so much easier to externalize it, and I think that's our natural direction and path that we take, then you can also begin to move through the world so much more powerfully and to go into vulnerable situations choosing how I'm going to show up, knowing that there's self-acceptance internally. But when someone has we do have like real flaws or struggles internally. So very often the judgment or the struggle comes around the things that we really aren't great at. So if someone rejects you for a real flaw that you have, that like we are imperfect beings, how can we own the parts of ourselves that are harder and maybe not as beautiful, and not just accepting the lovely parts of us, but the harder parts too.
So it's really more about not shaming yourself for it. So accepting the imperfection, knowing that you're working on it. And then if someone really rejects you for that, then they really weren't your husband. So using it, like if it's a woman, using it as a filter rather than a judgment. Like I have people with disabilities or something will say, like, I'm so terrified I'm not going to get married because of the disability. And I said, I hear that, but your husband won't care about the disability. In fact, they'll admire the journey you've been on as a result of the disability. That's who your husband will be. So if there's a guy who's not acting that way towards you, then guess what? They're not your husband. It's a filter. It's not like Hashem gave you this. You didn't choose it. So that means it's part of your purpose. Right? We just had in the shul, Sola, we just had a guy who was run over by a train, the one who didn't have any legs, and he just got married. And he said it changed his whole life. I think he even said he's grateful for that experience, for the experience of the train running away. It totally changed his life. And he just got married to a wonderful person. Like, it's not true that a disability is going to, or any flaw or any disability, right? Unless you're really abusive to others. That's a different thing.
Or a mental health struggle.
Right. No. Plenty of people are married with mental health struggles.
Yeah, of course.
Plenty. Right.
Well, I actually love that you said it's a filter, because then in general, like when we're connecting with other people, like we can be honest about our flaws or disabilities or our mental health struggles, knowing that it will be a filter for the people who are supposed to be in our lives or not, obviously sharing in a respectful way. But
right.
Yeah.
And what we don't realize is you are created by Hashem on purpose with all the stuff that you have. And it's our job to work on it. But you're created on purpose, which means no one is less than. No one. You are not less than. You are not unworthy.
Yeah.
And you are not unlovable. And so if you just keep focusing on building that premise inside yourself as a foundation, then you can handle anything. You can handle, if someone treats me in a very judgmental, rude way, and I have that foundation that I know I'm lovable, good, and worthy, I just look at someone judging me going, wow, I wonder if they're having a bad day. It's about them.
And their own
it's not about
judgments.
Me. Yeah, if someone's judging you and being mean or rude or whatever, it's about them, not you.
Well, here's the thing. I know you work with single women, and specifically in the Orthodox community, and this can come up in a really difficult way during this time of life, especially if someone's working with matchmakers who might directly or inadvertently say like, well, it's your family background, or you need to lose weight, or like things that are just
this is why you're never married.
And absurd.
Yeah.
And do shift the blame onto you for not being married, but the judgment is maybe coming from someone who also holds the keys to you meeting the people you want to meet, to try to filter out who is the one. So how do you navigate that type of judgment that's coming from someone who's in a position that's like setting people up?
It's so painful. It's such an exploitation of power as well. And often these people have just decided to be a shadchan or a matchmaker. They're not, like, there's no shadchan school or certificate. So any random person who has an idea suddenly is a shadchan that you have to be dependent on. I don't buy it. Okay. And Hashem doesn't need that shadchan, and Hashem doesn't give that shadchan the only keys. So if Hashem doesn't need that shadchan, neither do you. And if someone is ever treating you in a way that is disrespectful, violating, pushy, nosy, it's none of their business. You do not need that person. You are not dependent or as powerless as you think you are. The only power is Hashem. Just say, Hashem, I know you don't want me to go through this to be able to meet my husband. I'm not going back to that shadchan. You know, just because you're single doesn't mean you can't set boundaries and have self-respect. And I think it's very, very important to walk away from a shadchan if they ever make you feel degraded, violated, disrespected. You don't need them. Hashem has many avenues. Don't worry about it.
I've heard from parents, though, who say that they choose to play the game for the sake of their child. So even if a shadchan is not necessarily so respectful or is nosy or is pushy, if they feel that like they have access to names or whatever it is, they'll stay for the sake of their child. Would you recommend that parents should walk away too?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if the parents can protect the child and deal with the behavior, fine, as a buffer.
Right.
But it's the same issue, meaning I think I've got to take bad midos and exploitation of power and rudeness, because otherwise I'm not going to get dates for my kid, is also a lack of bitachon. And Hashem knows where your kid's husband is. Like, same thing. Parents have to go through an enormous test of bitachon when their kid's dating. They do.
Yeah.
And even more so because they're not in control. They're powerless, and they so much want their good for their child, and they're not in control. It's very hard. It's sometimes in a way a harder test, to be in the test of not knowing and uncertainty, and you can't make it happen, and it's not you, it's your kid. Like, it's hard, but it's the same test of surrender and uncertainty, and doing your ishtalis, putting in your effort, and then surrendering the outcome to Hashem. And if you put in ishtalis with this shadchan and they're horrible to you, you're not obligated to continue doing effort with that specific shadchan. Hashem, I trust you. I'm relying on you. You're my dad. I'm relying on you. You're my father. I know you can bring it in one of 100 ways. I think Hashem's limited to this shadchan. No way. We limit Hashem so much out of our fear.
Say more about that.
We limit Hashem. We think Hashem, we either think it's not going to happen. Really what it is, we ignore Hashem, we avoid Hashem, we cut him out, and we think it's up to us. When we take control, there is a scary idea that wherever you give your power to, we're at the mercy of. So if I truly give my power to the shadchan, I have to stay in this because they have the names. Then Hashem will say, okay, you're giving your power to this person. I'm going to be here loving you from a distance, but you're at the mercy of the system because you've put yourself back into the natural system.
You trust the system.
You trust the system. If you don't do that, even if you catch yourself and say, no, I'm giving power to them, they have no power. Ein od milvado, only Hashem has power. I don't need this person. Hashem, only you have power. I'm in your hands. Then we pop ourselves out of the natural realm back into the supernatural. And that allows Hashem, a conduit, to come down and act in our behalf, on our behalf. He does such a better job. He does a much better job.
Much better job. Okay. I love, you keep mentioning bitachon, trust in God, and really being able to like surrender and trust in a higher power and system. And like, if you play by the rules of the world, you'll be beholden to the rules of the world. But if you submit to Hashem, then Hashem has infinite good in store for you.
Well, these aren't my ideas.
Yeah. But you're saying it so beautifully. Yes. And I love how you're relating it to like finding the person that we're destined to marry or whatever it is. But because you work in this way of like really navigating like the subconscious blocks that we have to this, a person could say, I believe in Hashem, I trust in Hashem over and over and over again, but their whole system is rejecting that idea.
Yes,
so
exactly.
What does it look like to like really feel trust in Hashem?
Secure. It feels like he's got my back. Like I can relax. I can relax back. And I practice it a lot, meaning it's a lifelong practice, right? This is a lifelong practice of many different layers and layers and layers. But let's say, I'm going to use a simple example that everyone will relate to because it's so easy. And it's the shift going from not having bitachon, trust, to having it. Mm-hmm. I'm going somewhere, I'm running a bit late, and I want to get a parking spot, and then I realize, oh my gosh, it's a really crazy busy street, and there's not a lot of parking spots there. And as I'm going there, inside myself, I'm feeling, I've got to get a parking spot. Oh, I hope I get a parking spot. Oh, Hashem, please help me get me a parking spot, right? That's normal. We would all say that, if we're talking to God. I talk to God a lot in the car. And I hope I get a parking spot. Where do I think the best parking spot street is? And I'm going through it thinking I've got to find myself a parking spot. Oh, Hashem, and you, can you also help me get a parking spot? Like really, I'm in control, but can you also help me? And like
way in here.
Right? And versus when I catch myself, when I catch myself, what am I worried about? Of course Hashem wants to get me a parking spot. Hashem, I'm relying on you for a parking spot. And I just relax because I gave the problem to him. He's going to get me a parking spot. And I feel calm inside in my heart. and I feel relaxed. And as I pull up, someone just gently pulls out and I just get in. And I'm like, thank you so much. Right? It changes the quality of your praying completely from one of hope, begging, a constriction, please, 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 to I'm relying on you. I'm relying on you for this. I need this because of XYZ, and I know you have my back, and I'm relying on you for it. It just changes the wording. I know this is going to be good because I know you have my back. And Hashem, if you wouldn't mind, please, blah, 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 blah. But it's not, it's the state is different. We talked about state, story, strategy. The state is different. The state of trust is a state of security, of calmness, of feeling like you're in Hashem's lap. I had a crazy surgery a number of years ago. Not crazy surgery. It was a big surgery. And about 6 years ago, thank God, everything's fine, or 5 years ago. And they wheel you in LA awake to the operating room. And everyone told me it was going to be 5 hours, 5.5 hours, excruciating pain, 4 to 6 week recovery, and just brace for the pain. It's going to be really bad, but after a couple of weeks on drugs, you'll be okay. It was not fun. I was not looking forward to it. And I went, and they wheeled me in. In New York, at least you're asleep. They put you asleep first and then wheel you in. It's like very psychologically a very strange thing. They wheel you in awake. So I'm awake in the operating room, and all the staff are bustling around getting ready. And I see my name on the board. I'm feeling a bit nervous now. The lights, bright lights like this. And across from me on the side are all these instruments, scalpels, knives, scissors, all on the side of, and I'm realizing these are the scissors and knives that are about to cut me open.
Wow.
Yes. And that's how I felt. And I was freaking out. And I was okay till that point, and then I lost it. And in that moment of Hashem squeezing me in the uncertainty, I had a choice. I could either break down and cry, which was understandable, or I could turn to Hashem. And it forced me to turn to Hashem. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. And out of the fear, Hashem creates often uncertainty, Beis Halevi says, so that we turn to him, so that we then merit a supernatural response. So it's a whole different hop on anxiety, that if you feel anxious in the unknown, it could be because Hashem wants you to turn to him so that you merit him coming and giving you a redemption or a miracle or something.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful reframe on anxiety. And because of that, I turned to Hashem. And it's so funny because I said it aloud in a whisper, right? But I said it aloud, and the anesthesiologist could hear me. And I was like, they have no control. It's only you, Hashem. Only you have power. They have no power. And I'm saying this to myself, but aloud, to really put myself in Hashem's hands. And I was like, it's only you. You're guiding their hands. It's all you. It's all you. Like, I really just had to, I kind of imagined myself purely like in a cocoon, just in Hashem's lap. Mm-hmm. And literally no one else existed. Mm-hmm. And the anesthesiologist just put me out. I think he thought I was losing it. I literally went out in that state.
He's like, quick.
Who is this lady? Right? And I already had the drip in and everything. And I went out, and when I wake up, and I was so grateful that I actually went under like that, And
that was perfect comedic timing.
It was perfect. It was. And when I woke up, they said, well, yeah, the operation was really fast. It was 1.5 hours instead of 5 hours. And I was bracing for the pain, and I felt a dull ache. And I thought, oh, the anesthetic's still wearing off. 24 hours later, it never progressed more than a dull ache after people told me it was going to be excruciatingly painful, who had had the same surgery. And I was back at work in 1.5 weeks instead of 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And the doctor was like, who's a top surgeon, said, yeah, you really scratching him. He's like, you really are ahead of the curve. What's the curve? The statistics. Yeah. When you give your power to Hashem, you create a conduit, and he uses the natural world, but it's not the natural world. This was supernatural. I know with every fiber of my being that it was because of the state I was in as I went under, which was a gift from Hashem to scare me, to make me turn to Hashem, to do this, because then I merited some sort of response from Hashem. Because when you put your trust in Hashem and rely on him, only him, it says that it forces his hand in a way, meaning Hashem says, I want to come through for you. If you rely on me, just like I have a new baby, Baruch Hashem, and there's no one else getting up in the middle of the night. I have to get up. If she moves and starts crying, I literally cannot ignore her because she's relying on me. So Hashem's the same. It's like a parent. If you really say, I'm only relying on you, you're putting that responsibility on Hashem, and we get power to choose. Am I going to put that on Hashem or a doctor? And if I say, well, I have to be here for the doctor, and you thank the doctor and you feel grateful to the doctor, but I know it wasn't the doctor's power, it was Hashem's power. Hashem was guiding the doctor's hands. And I am certain that merited a miracle.
Wow.
Like a miracle within nature.
And the fact that you saw the tools that awoke that fear within you, that
yes, the anxiety.
Calling out to Hashem. I think that's such a gorgeous way of looking at our own fear
yes.
as an opportunity to pivot our orientation
Correct.
towards God, when our instinct is to trust the doctor, to trust the fact that this is a top surgeon, and to let that be what alleviates our fears. But when the fear becomes even greater, and it's like, even the fact that this is a top surgeon, like I see the knife and that's going in my body, I need God.
I need God. And the fact that Beis Halevi brings that God will create situations of anxiety for us so that we turn to him, so that we earn merit, and that merit brings that response. It's also, it was an unbelievable reframe. I was so inspired when I heard that.
Yeah. What about it do you love?
That anxiety isn't bad. It's not always bad. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to like you said, pivot and give the power to Hashem. Where am I giving my power? Often when we feel anxious, we should ask ourselves that question. Where am I giving power right now that's making me anxious? Whether it's a date, whether it's a shadchan, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a boss, whether it's whatever. Where am I giving my power? That's not Hashem. Because if I was giving it only to Hashem, I would feel calm.
Yeah.
It's a good litmus test.
Yeah, that's great. And when it comes to dating, you spoke about how being in a place of like real bitachon and trust in God will move you out of that like frantic, chaotic state to being calm and knowing that Hashem is going to give you what you need. But when you are so alone, and you described that at the beginning, you described like being alone, falling asleep at night, wanting to be in a relationship, and that brings out the opposite of calm. It brings out desperation and real loneliness and neediness, which is often what like also makes it harder to develop a relationship. Like the whole thing is so difficult and challenging. How to even begin to soften that real emotional experience to become calm and trust and presence with Hashem, to open up that supernatural gift.
It's the relationship with yourself. How do you respond to yourself when you're like that?
Okay.
How do you respond to yourself? Are you present? Are you nurturing, kind? Questions like, what would feed me right now? Emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and physically.
Okay.
What would nurture me? What would feed me? I need to give something to myself if I'm empty and I'm feeling alone and empty. And so you obviously work with what you have, right? Whether that's literally from a bath to a friend to something fun to a massage to whatever it is. Like, what can I do for myself? Go out and give. Sometimes going out and being needed by others is the thing that empowers you, because you feel your strength. When I was single, and I was feeling like just kind of lost and dark and sad and powerless. So the best thing for me to do was to go out and do a class, teach a class, give back in the ways that I could give, right? Or go and do some volunteering, or go and help someone else that needed me more, because all of a sudden I felt my strength, and that balanced that feeling of that lost, hopeless, dark place. So it's sometimes accessing your strength in those moments, which is sometimes not what you feel like doing. But it's interesting, when I was feeling like that, sometimes Hashem would send me someone who would be like, hey, can you teach a class? And I'd be like,
no.
Okay. And I would go and do it. And then afterwards I'd feel so energized and so much better. And I knew that's what I needed. Sometimes it's getting out of ourselves and not staying in that spiral. Getting out of ourselves, stop focusing on yourself, focus on other people. And other times it's about, no, I need some TLC. I need some care and love. So it's about how you respond to yourself in that moment.
People often speak about how you can't get into a relationship when you feel like you need it so badly. Like you are enough, your connection to yourself is enough. Do you take that position? Do you feel that the ideal is to feel that like your relationship with yourself is enough and you cultivate a marriage relationship from that space? Or do you think that like wanting for another person and yearning for that type of wholeness is a healthy space to be in when you're single?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's a difference between yearning and needing.
Okay.
If I need a relationship, I'm desperate. Usually that desperateness comes from a lack in the sense of I feel not good enough, not worthy without marriage. When I feel like I'm lovable, good, and worthy as a person, now I'm going to have a healthy yearning to build something bigger than me, not need a marriage because I don't feel enough without it. Subtle difference, but massive. Desperation means I come from lack. When we really date from a healthy place, we're not coming from the lack in the sense of I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough without this. It's such a fine line that people confuse. And so many singles feel like they're not good enough, they're not worthy because they're not married. Marriage will not give that to you ever. You'll just wake up inside the marriage in a few months down the track and feel now you're projecting all your neediness and unworthiness onto your husband, and you're going to think he's looking at you in a judgmental way or he's It's all going to come out in marriage anyway.
Yeah.
If that's your wound, it sounds very Jewish. Like it sounds very like, yes, I'm yearning for my soulmate and I want to get married. I'm not whole enough without my soulmate. Like all these concepts are true, starting from a place of wholeness, meaning starting from a place of knowing my worth. If you know your worth, you don't need someone else to make you feel worthy, then you're good to get married. Meaning, otherwise you really should work on that worth. And now it's not perfect. You can get married with self-worth issues and work on it in marriage. But that's really the difference, is that I'm not coming to date from a place of lack in myself, within myself, that I am relying on you for self-worth and self-esteem. I need you for validation. That's codependency. That's not healthy marriage. Codependency is I need someone else to make me feel a certain way. That's not healthy. When it's I feel relatively like a good, whole, lovable, worthy human being, but I'm lacking in the sense that I'm limited because I want to build something bigger than myself with someone. I want to build a home. I want to build a family. I want to impact the world. I want to, whatever it is, I want to do something more than me, but not because I don't feel good enough without that, because I have so much to give. I want to expand, and I'm yearning for that. I'm yearning for the expansion. I'm yearning for that. Then that's healthy. But it comes from a different place and it feels different than neediness. Neediness and desperation do not feel like yearning. Yearning for something bigger, building something bigger. It's hard to know that when you're in it, because if you're in that place of desperation, you think it's yearning, but it's not. It's need. I need from someone else. I'm taking from them rather than I'm giving to build something. There's very different energy.
Yeah. And when you talk about that self-worth piece and making a decision to marry someone from a place of self-worth and lovability, we're going to choose to marry someone different. And I'm curious to know if you believe in the one, or if you think that it's just dependent on where we're at and we marry someone that kind of like mirrors our headspace. And if we're in a wounded space, maybe someone who just alleviates that feeling of wounding temporarily. Do you believe in the one? Do you think that we have one soulmate that is out there for us, or is it more of a reflection of where we're at internally?
It's both, but we have multiple soulmates.
Okay.
Meaning the Torah says that we have at least two, Zivug Rishon and Zivug Sheni. So that if you missed your first one or whatever, there's another one down the line. That's my understanding of it anyway. And I've asked different Rabbanim about it. But I do think it's reflective of the quality of relationship that you have with yourself, and where you're at in your own evolution of self-actualization will definitely influence who you will receive and attract. There's no question. People see when they do the work that their quality or even suggestions change. They're freaked out. Like they'll literally be doing the work and they haven't had a suggestion in a year, and out of the blue, in the middle of the course, they'll get 3 suggestions. And they're freaked out. Why? Because they're allowing themselves to become receivers. They're allowing themselves to shift and feel like they're worthy of it. And all of a sudden, the response from the world is that. Hashem sets the world up that way. It's a mishlei, I think. Yeah.
That when you send out an energy, like I'm interested to hear what.
So it says in Mishlei 27:19, Kamayim hapanim lapanim, kain lev ha'adam la'adam. So too, just like a water, when we look into a water, our face is reflected back. So too is the heart of a person to a person. So whatever is going on in my heart will be reflected back to me in the world. And so as my heart changes and as I change internally, that's what you get reflected back.
It's so powerful and relates to me about what you spoke about with judgment. That like if I'm judging myself, then the world will actually be judging me. Like it's not just that I'm almost like sending out that energy of like I'm a person to judge.
Yes. Yes. And that's why there are elements of truth to the manifesting craze that's going on because of these principles. But you see, it's not the whole picture.
Okay. What is it missing?
What's missing is that the God manifests. We don't manifest, and it's not a guarantee just because you visualize and do certain techniques of manifesting that you're going to manifest. Otherwise, everyone would be walking around billionaires and everyone would be traveling in private jets and in the greater world, I'm saying. They would be manifesting everything all the time. Of course, it doesn't work that way because Hashem decides ultimately. And they kind of leave Hashem out of it. So it's very limited. It's a bit dangerous because you can get elements of truth and go off a cliff spiritually.
Right.
Yeah. But we do see that if you move into that Avinu Malkeinu system of Avinu is my dad, my father, I'm relying on you, Dad. I'm secure inside because I'm relying on you. I know you have my back. It opens us up to change the status of where we're at and we can receive more blessing. Or I move into Malkeinu. There are things out of my control that I've been resisting and rejecting and feel betrayed and I'm fighting against, and I'm going to surrender now and accept them. Hashem, if this is what you decide, it's not what I want, but if it's what you want, I'm going to do my best with it. It still can make me sad. I don't have to pretend I'm happy, but I'm going to accept that you're in charge, not me. And that also pops us out of the natural world into a status that is higher and supernatural and allows us to receive things we may not have merited to receive. It changes the capacity for blessing completely. And Hashem shows us that.
Beautiful. And I love the thread that I keep hearing of just really taking ownership for our own headspace. I feel like the questions that I brought up were directed towards like being in the dating world and being single because that's your topic. But your answers are just answers that all felt personally resonant and relevant. Yeah. So I really think that this is just like a work of being a person in the world and orienting ourselves towards Hashem. And I would love to end with two questions. One being to people who have loved ones or friends or community members who are in this period of being single, dating, wanting to meet their spouse. How can we support singles better and show up for them in a time that could be, as you said, very difficult and lonely?
By seeing them as a whole person and not relating to them only through their issue of being single, by inviting them and including them in things that they often get left out of, meals and activities. And, I remember one year, Mishloach Manot, I was in a wealthy area and families were giving to other families naturally. And I just saw all this shuffling of Mishloach Manos and I got not one. I mean, I gave mine out and I did not receive one. And I was very close to numerous families. And they just didn't think about it because they're thinking through the families, right? Who do we give? The Rebbes and the families and this. But singles, stuff like that, include them because of who they are. Or like I used to get invited because it was a singles meal. So like all the random singles would just get together and you're there because you're the single. Don't do that.
No.
Treat them as a human being. Relate to their life about other things and their strengths. And, if you do have a suggestion, don't bring it up at a table. Bring it up privately and say like, listen, I might have an idea. Is it something that's relevant to you right now? Don't ask them sporadically how their dating's going because people think that shows that they care, but it really often feels invasive a lot of the time. It depends on the relationship, but it feels invasive because just because you decide to ask me doesn't mean I want to now talk about the most painful thing in my life.
Oof.
Just because randomly you're asking me or at a table in front of people. We got to get her married. I remember hearing that so many times at tables.
What?
Anyone got an idea? Like at tables, even just with a few people, like, okay, what are you looking for? Like, let's help you. What?
It's not like a Shabbos game.
Right.
Like a table game.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like finding.
Or at a wedding, assumed by you, like people look at you with the pity, the pity looks. Stop with the pity looks.
See me as a person.
Stop with the pity. So my singles often ask me, what can I say to people that are looking at me that way or like I can't take it. So I just say, look people square down the eye and say, don't worry, Hashem has a plan for me too. And people kind of giggle nervously when they hear that because it's true.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. They love it. They come back and say, that was best line.
Best line. Okay, something I've heard is if someone asks how your dating life is going, if they're married, respond with, how's your marriage going?
Exactly.
Which I loved. I was like, yeah, that's the commensurate measure of invasiveness in someone's private life.
Yeah, how's your marriage? How's your shalom bias?
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you guys happy? Like, how's your dating life going with your husband? Like, you guys still talk?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you fight much?
Yeah. And so to anyone who is in this period of life, who is single, whether they just entered into this dating period and are young, or they've been in it for years and years and years, or they're divorced and starting it again, or lost a spouse, whatever it is, whatever part of life they're in, what is your like words of wisdom or love or encouragement that you would say directly to someone who's navigating that experience?
That you're single by design, not by punishment.
Okay.
That you're in a journey, in a process. It will happen. And all you have to do is to just look within and say, how can I just keep myself, becoming more and more of who I am? How do I, as I'm here and not married, what can I grow and develop in myself? Don't be scared of that inner work. And it can be that we can stand in our own way. It is possible. I don't want to play nicey nice to the point where it means nothing. No, you absolutely can be standing in your own way of receiving your soulmate. And you have to look at their patterns in dating. So when someone comes to me, again, like I'm the dating surgeon rather than dating coach, but no one wants surgery, so I don't say that. But I'll diagnose. I'll say, what are your patterns in dating? Because your patterns in dating, you're the common denominator of. And so that means there's reflecting something in you that you need to work on. It's not random that you're getting no dates. It's not random that you're getting bad dates, as in not appropriate dates. And it's not random that you're only doing one and done dates. I can't get past date 1 or 2. And that's your pattern. If it's your pattern, it means there's something that it's holding you back. We have to explore that and do the work, do the inner work. Don't be scared of it. That's what you're on the planet to do. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're defective. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
It means you're human and you're holy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good tagline.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. You brought it all together. We're human and holy. We love to end that way. And I will be putting all of the links in the show notes for anyone who has connected with you, who is in this stage of life, who would love to have more guidance from you on doing this work. Then you do really put out a lot of offerings for people to be able to like deepen this experience.
Yes.
I think that the work that you're describing is, as you said, it's what we're on this earth to do, to like soften those blockages, to orient ourselves towards Hashem. This was so delightful. Thank you for this time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was
beautiful
such a pleasure.
conversation.
Yeah, I loved it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you loved it. And if you did, you know what to do. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating or review. It helps other people find the podcast, brings us joy. You know the drill. We love hearing from you, so email us at info@humanandholy.com. You can find us on Instagram at humanandholy. Visit humanandholy.com/sponsor to support our work. Make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. New episodes come out every single Sunday and Wednesday, though we are going on a season break over the summer, and we will be re-airing old episodes for the next couple of weeks until we come back to you on September 7th with fresh, beautiful season 6 content that I cannot wait to share with you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
אלוקיי זכינינה בתורתך ובמצוותיך לחבר את נשמתי תמיד אליך לחבר תמיד אליך